The story of the British monarchy is filled with conquest and tragedy, revolution and reform. But at the heart of the modern era, there's a different kind of story. It's not about a monarch and her subjects, but about a queen and her husband. Theirs was one of the most enduring royal partnerships in history. A marriage that lasted 73 years, weathering every storm imaginable. For 73 years, they were the constant heart of a monarchy in perpetual motion. The marriage of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip was a global love story. But its most important moments happened far away from the cameras. This is the story of the duty, the sacrifices, and the deep love that defined their incredible life together. Their story didn't start in a palace, but at a family wedding in 1934, where an 8-year-old Princess Elizabeth briefly met a 13-year-old Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark. They met again in 1937, but it was 5 years later, at the Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, that everything changed. While her parents toured the college, a dashing 18-year-old Philip was asked to entertain the princesses. For the quiet 13-year-old Elizabeth, it was pure magic. Her governess later said she never took her eyes off him, and according to biographers, she never really looked at anyone else. Philip was her complete opposite. She was cautious and traditional. He was a boisterous naval officer with a restless spirit and a complicated past. Born into Greek and Danish royalty, his family had been exiled from Greece when he was a baby. He grew up a prince with no real home, educated in France, Germany, and Britain. That rootless childhood forged a fierce independence and a blunt, no-nonsense personality that fascinated the young princess. During World War II, while Philip served with distinction in the Royal Navy, they began writing letters that built the foundation of their romance. His notes from faraway seas and her replies from a fortified Windsor castle closed the distance between their two very different worlds. After the war, their relationship blossomed, but not without some pushback. The royal establishment was skeptical. They saw Philip as an outsider, a prince with German family ties in a country still healing from war, who was known for being brash and outspoken, but Elizabeth was determined. On her 21st birthday, her father, King George VI, finally agreed, and their engagement was officially announced on July 9, 1947, to a nation desperate for some good news. Their wedding in November 1947 was a ray of hope in a bleak post-war London. Britain was still under rationing, and Princess Elizabeth famously saved up her clothing coupons to pay for her dress. Though the government did grant her 200 extra coupons for the occasion. It was a moment of national joy and the fairy tale start to a lifetime of shared duty. For a few precious years, they lived an almost ordinary life. Between 1949 and 1951, the couple lived in Malta, where Philip was stationed as a naval officer. For Elizabeth, these were some of the happiest years of her life. She wasn't the heir to the throne. She was simply a naval officer's wife. She could drive her own car, handle cash, and go on boat trips with her husband, far from the stiff rules of the court. She later remembered her happy days here with Prince Philip when we were first married. It was a taste of normal life they'd never get back. But that idyllic world shattered in February 1952. While on a royal tour in Kenya, the news came: King George VI had died in his sleep. In a cruel twist, it was Philip who had to tell his 25-year-old wife that her beloved father was gone, and that she was now queen. In that single moment, their private life ended. Her life, and by extension, his now, belonged to the nation. The weight of the crown was immense and immediate. Philip's promising naval career, a core part of who he was over. He had reached the rank of commander, but now his job was simply to support his wife. They had to leave their family home, Clarence House, and move into what Philip reportedly called the gilded cage of Buckingham Palace. The man who once sailed the world was now constitutionally required to walk 2 steps behind his wife for the rest of his life. The transition from a man of action to a royal consort was, by all accounts, incredibly tough. In the deeply patriarchal 1950s, Philip's role just didn't make sense to many. One of the first major conflicts was over their family name. Philip was furious when the government and his own wife decided their children would be named Windsor. Not his name, Mountbatten. He famously complained, "I am the only man in the country not allowed to give his name to his own children." It was a fight for identity that showed just how hard he struggled to find his footing. He was an alpha male with a blunt personality that often clashed with the Queen's more cautious nature. Frustrated and feeling sidelined, he was determined to carve out a real role for himself. He saw an ancient institution that badly needed a modern touch. It was Philip who pushed for the Queen's 1953 coronation to be televised. Ignoring protests from traditionalists like Winston Churchill, it was a massive success, bringing the monarchy into the living rooms of over 20 million people for the first time. Still, the pressures were enormous. Long solo tours on the royal yacht Britannia in the mid-1950s sparked baseless rumors of marriage troubles. While TV shows have dramatized these supposed tensions, there has never been any credible evidence that Philip was unfaithful. Those closest to them have always said their bond was unshakable. What is true, however, is that their marriage faced extraordinary challenges. Philip had to navigate a world of suffocating rules, while Elizabeth had to balance being a sovereign with being a wife to a proud, ambitious man. As Philip later said, it required tolerance in abundance. He eventually found his purpose, not just in supporting the Queen, but in championing science, industry, and conservation, and most famously, by creating the Duke of Edinburgh's Award in 1956, a program that has helped millions of young people around the world. As the decades passed, their partnership deepened and became a symbol of stability. The challenges they've faced shifted from defining their roles to navigating intense family crises. Under the constant glare of the media, the 1990s were especially tough. The Queen famously called 1990 to her annus horribilis, or horrible year. It was a period that saw the separation of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson, the divorce of Princess Anne, and a massive fire at Windsor Castle. But the most damaging crisis was the very public collapse of the marriage between their son, Prince Charles, and Diana, Princess of Wales. Through it all, Philip was a constant protective figure by the Queen's side. Even when they had different ideas on how to handle things, Philip wrote compassionate letters to Diana, sympathizing with the struggles of marrying into the family. Their own union was the unwavering anchor. In 1997, on their 50th wedding anniversary, the famously private Queen made a deeply personal and moving tribute to her husband. She gave the world a rare look into their marriage, saying, "He is someone who doesn't take easily to compliments. But he has, quite simply, been my strength and stay all these years. And I, and his whole family, and this and many other countries, owe him a debt greater than he would ever claim, or we shall ever know." Strength and stay was the perfect description of his role. He was the only person who could treat the Queen like a regular human being, cutting through the formalities to speak his mind. That support was never clearer than in 2002, when the Queen lost both her mother and her sister, Margaret, in just a few weeks. Philip was there, as always, offering his quiet, steadfast support. Their later years were a beautiful testament to their lasting affection. The public would often catch glimpses of their easy companionship, a shared laugh during a formal event, or the Queen's face lighting up when she saw him. They celebrated their diamond wedding anniversary in 2007 and their platinum anniversary in 2017, the first British monarch ever to do so. In 2017, at the age of 96, Prince Philip retired from public duties after completing over 22,000 solo engagements. His retirement gave them more time together, away from the demanding royal schedule. He spent his final years mostly at Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, enjoying a much quieter life. Even when they were apart, they were always in touch. Then, the 2020 global pandemic brought them together in a way they hadn't experienced in decades. They spent the lockdowns together at Windsor Castle, a final, unexpected period of quiet seclusion. It was in that same castle, on April 9, 2021, that Prince Philip passed away peacefully at 99 years old. His funeral, scaled back because of pandemic rules, became a powerful portrait of the Queen's grief. The image of the monarch, dressed in black and sitting all alone in the pews of St. George's Chapel, was a heartbreaking symbol of her 73-year partnership coming to an end. But even in her sorrow, she showed the same sense of duty he had always championed. She insisted there would be no self-pity, saying her husband would certainly not have approved. If you're fascinated by the stories that shaped the monarchy, make sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into royal history. The marriage of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip wasn't just a love story. It was a working partnership that helped define the modern British monarchy. He was the modernizer, the realist, and the unwavering supporter who helped her carry the lonely weight of the crown. She was the devoted sovereign who, at just 13 years old, fell in love and never looked back. Together, they built a legacy of stability and service that spanned nearly 3/4 of a century. A partnership for the ages and a love story that will be told for centuries to come.